Welcome back to this interview on virtualization. How do CIOs really calculate ROI when it comes to storage virtualization? What are some of the matrices that you suggest?
Yeah, so there are clearly tangible ways as well as intangible ways. So the clear ways to measure the ROI is in terms of the utilization. And in IBM as a company, when we implemented the virtualization and we rolled it out to multiple customers in different sectors, and we had an opportunity to go back to many of these customers and ask them, tell me one single reason why you implemented virtualization, or what is the benefit that you're seeing out of virtualization. Almost all of them resoundingly came back and said utilization, right? Improvement in utilization. And that translates into direct dollars or rupees, and in terms of how much ever capacity that they were buying, which is then brought down because of improved utilization. The second important advantage that they get is in terms of simplicity, in terms of management. When you have multiple storage devices, as I was mentioning earlier, the management becomes a very difficult task. You have to manage individual devices. Many a times, if it happens to be a heterogeneous storage device, you have to have administrators managing each and every one of them individually. So soon you'll find an army of administrators in the IT enterprise. Virtualization also simplifies that to a large degree to kind of convert the management as well. So those are tangible areas where CIOs are seeing the return on their investment. The intangible ones are, of course, improvement in business continuity. When you put a dollar figure to it in terms of outage costs, naturally you get the return on investment there as well. Many a times people find that the return on investment in technologies such as virtualization is within 1.5 years in their enterprise.
Okay. What are some of the most common mistakes that CIOs make when it comes to virtualization? Because it's one thing to, often CIOs plan for a certain ROI, they project a certain ROI, but it often does not come. So what are some of the mistakes that they make when it comes to virtualization, which causes some of these issues?
I wouldn't call them as much as mistakes, but there are cautious steps that one would want to take, right? And if you take the technology is compelling. Let me make that statement very clear. The technology is compelling. In my view, I would go out on a limb and say CIOs today, IT heads today, have no choice but to jump onto a storage virtualization platform, primarily because of the expanding storage capacities. It keeps on increasing. Gone are the days when gigabytes and were talked about. Today, petabytes doesn't scare me anymore. Now, with all those things coming into play, it is important to make sure that virtualization as a technology is not adopted in one stroke across the organization. So you start with some areas where it makes a lot of sense, and then slowly look at the usability of it, applicability of it to other applications, and start rolling out. Part of the other reason could be people have to get used to the new technology. So implementing that in an area where perhaps a non-core application first and then moving on to production makes a lot of sense, and that's what people do. So from that perspective, I will mention this as people should be cautious about how virtualization is rolled out.
It's not that you speak of advantages. Can you give us some examples of businesses that have used some of your storage technology, virtualization technologies, and how they've gained?
Yeah, so for example, telecommunications is one of the areas where we find that the amount of storage capacity is increasing dramatically. There the focus is simplification of management. When you have petabytes of storage devices, storage capacities, how do you simplify the management? And that's where virtualization came in, became a focal point, and they started using it. If you take a BFSI customer, typical BFSI customer, and particularly in India, where we are finding is that there are end-of-day operations where they want to offload some portions of the workload to a secondary storage device. So how do you move data automatically such that the secondary storage device serves the needs of end-of-day operation or backup, report generation, and so on? So BFSI sector tends to use this much more effectively, primarily because they have a distinction between the primary storage device and second-tier storage device, and therefore the life cycle management aspect as well.
What about the government itself? I believe the Indian government has recently put out an RFP for perhaps one of the largest virtualization orders in India. I mean, how do you think virtualization will really help the government?
So it will, first of all, it'll help government in maximizing the assets utilization. Secondary goal is we should keep in mind that India being a growing country, we need to make sure that there is certain amount of environmental consideration taken when you put these things together. So this green IT as a concept gets integrated very easily to virtualization, as I was mentioned before. So virtualization is going to help both in terms of increased utilization as well as the greenness of IT, if you will, for government. And I think the whole requirement is surrounding that also.
Okay. What about the competitive landscape? Finally, I just want to end with that. VMware has been around for a very long time. Microsoft is giving its VMware for free, and now there's Oracle's VM2. So where does IBM really stand in this competitive landscape?
Yeah, okay. So virtualization as a technology is not new to IBM.
Yeah,
we have been doing it
old.
Exactly. We've been doing this for the past 6 decades now, and we have seen benefits of it. So when we have these rolled out into the field and customers using it, deriving benefit, translating that into storage area was a cakewalk for us. So we've been doing it for several years now. We are in the fifth generation of the virtualization release, and we have more than 10,000 implementations around the world. What we will see is a dramatically different technology than what the others have been using in terms of competition. And that's because we've learned some great lessons from our mainframe as well as System P, wherein these become sort of within the DNA, if you will. So in terms of competitive landscape, different architectures do exist, and IBM chose to implement the virtualization in the certain layer and scale out architecture using fabric implemented between the fabric, and that has proved to be tremendously advantageous to us, both in terms of less intrusive implementations of virtualization as well as translating benefits to our customers much more effectively. We have Hitachi, we have VMware. All of these have different kinds of implementations, particularly with respect to virtualization.
Thank you so much, Subram. I think we had a fascinating discussion on virtualization. I'm sure it will be a lot of help to Indian CIOs, especially some of the smaller guys who are looking at virtualization. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.